Our title, Temples, Politics, and Business, reminds me of lines I once wrote in response to the call of Isaiah. Isaiah's temple vision better suits an age of quieter piety than ours. Our temples are too busy doing the work of temples, much too noisy in the task of making temple sounds. Our temple's temple. From morning until night, frenetically, they go about the busy work of templing. And there's another reason why we can't appropriate the vision of Isaiah. Our minds are much too busy being minds and much too noisy making thinking sounds. We do not want to listen and respond. We want to take command. We want to work, manipulate, cerebrate the Word. In any case, the hearing of the Word comes hard for us. In his moving words of encouragement and farewell to the leaders of the Christian community of Ephesus, Paul includes these thoughts. I am constrained by the Spirit to go to Jerusalem, and that doesn't come to Paul from going about the busy work of templing. In city after city, the Holy Spirit assures me that imprisonment and hardship await me, and this can be only in the listening and responding. Even from your own number, there will be those who will distort the truth in order to get the disciples to break away, some of whom, then and now, are too busy doing the work of temples and making temple sounds to hear and heed the Holy Spirit. Now, let's suspend our templing to listen to Dr. Karen Carter.
Acts 20, 17 through 38 is Paul's goodbye speech to the church leaders. Paul was on his last missionary journey to Greece. Soon he would travel to Jerusalem, where he would be arrested and questioned before political and religious authorities. He would then travel to Rome, where he would die for the Christian faith. Yet it was here at Miletus, a flourishing seaport, where Paul said goodbye to a group of Christians he had grown to love dearly. They were the Ephesians. They came from Ephesus, an important Christian center in Asia Minor, where Paul had taught them publicly, not privately, the way of Christianity. Here, at Miletus, church leaders who had been responsible for the health and care of Christians came to meet with Paul to receive final instruction. These church leaders were called elders and overseers. These are Greek terms used to describe persons who are in charge of nurturing Christians. During Paul's lifetime, elders and overseers were also called bishops. No matter what term was used to describe these church leaders, no image was more significant than the image of the bishop as shepherd. Here, early Christians referred to their leaders in a pastoral way. A bishop was a shepherd who cared for the flock, the Christians. A bishop cared for each Christian's well-being like a shepherd cares for sheep. A bishop was a teacher who instructed the faithful Christians who were learning how to live together with Christ as the head of their community. This was Paul's last opportunity to tell these church leaders entrusted with the care of the community what he had on his heart and mind. What did he want to say to them? Paul warns the church leaders to be diligent in their care of the community. Again, he uses the image of them as shepherds. He tells them that after he leaves the community, persons will come claiming they are the true shepherds. They will try to draw the flock away from following Christ. He describes these shepherds as savage wolves who want to tear apart the Christian community. He appeals to the Ephesian church leaders to hold fast to the grace that has been given them. The mystery has been made known to them publicly in the teaching and living out of their faith. He uses his own example of endurance through trial as a witness to God's grace given to them. Knowing the difference between true and false leadership is a central issue for this community. Often, the Greeks and the Romans accused Jews and Christians of being anti-God and anti-country. Why? Because neither Jews nor Christians would worship Caesar or civil authorities. Christians were accused of being traitors to the government when they would not worship Caesar. They were then ordered to die a criminal's death, as had Jesus of Nazareth. Witnesses of the Christian faith sometimes died as martyrs. Christians were also accused of being cannibals because they practiced their religion publicly by participating in the sacrament of Holy Communion. Here, Paul refers to the blood of Christ to tell church leaders again that remembrance of Christ's sacrifice and partaking of the sacrament is necessary in order to receive nurture. Again, to illustrate caring, Paul uses the image of the shepherd who nurtures the sheep. Knowing the difference between true and false worship and true and false practices of Christianity was an issue for the Ephesian church leaders. Paul had been with them for a long while to teach them to love God and neighbor, not the gods of the culture. How would Christians defend themselves against the accusation that they were traitors to the government and anarchists toward the civil order? Paul reminds them to follow the leading of the Holy Spirit. It had always been a challenge for the Ephesian community to follow the Holy Spirit as their guide and counselor. It was easy for disputes and strife to tear apart the community. Paul gives them the example of Christians living for the common good of the community. Christians are to practice justice and mercy, to give rather than to receive. Putting faith into action is the final test of a Christian's love for God and neighbor. Paul's own life, his ministry, his death, his martyrdom are a witness to the truth of Christianity. He taught and preached to build up the community in faith, not to destroy them. He was obedient to God's call even when it meant suffering. His purpose for living the Christian faith came from within, not from external authorities. That is why he is careful to remind the church leaders to rely on the direction of the Holy Spirit. Know from within yourself that you are entrusted with the care and nurture of the community. Church leaders are called to teach, preach, nurture, care, heal, and build up the church. They are the shepherds of the flock. To that goal, they must be true. The Paul presented here is a person of empathy. As he and the church leaders pray, hug and kiss, and say goodbye, they know the intimacy they have experienced with each other. They are attuned to each other's lives, words, and witness. The goodbye is tender, affectionate, and can stand the test of time.